Streaming. Okay. Mute yourself, Aman. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We have another Meet the Gurus event today. As many of you know, Meet the Gurus is dedicated to technology, business, and entrepreneurship, and as these fields have converged powerfully in ways that we've really changed our society and the way we function, and certainly the way businesses operate. Today's fortune is to have Chandan Sharma, who is a certain guru in numerous areas, including particularly marketing automation. Thank you for joining us, Chandan. Appreciate you having the time.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's great. So what I'd like to do is jump really very quickly into a little background about yourself so that people have an understanding of where you stand and where you come from in terms of your background and interests.
Sure. So, I've spent around 17 years in the field of, technology marketing, I would say. Started my career as a designer, moved to digital marketing for a very long time, and have been into marketing automation since last 4.5 years almost. I've worked with different technologies, implemented lots of projects. So far, I would say maybe 125 so far, single-handedly. And yeah, this is what I've been doing, so it's a kind of mix of, web development and a long period of digital marketing and now marketing automation.
Well, it's kind of interesting because most people, I would think, consider marketing automation something that's just, you rent a tool online, you use a platform, one or another, and then you're set. But it's obviously a lot more complicated. Tell us, what is marketing automation overall, so we have a context to talk from.
Sure. First of all, one thing which I keep getting, a question which I keep getting mostly, the marketing automation is not email marketing. It is much more than email marketing. It's like, automating your marketing process, right? It's kind of also having everything in one particular tool and, kind of scaling up from there. If also, doing operationally really good. And there are different tools out there which people use. And marketing automation combines different kind of things together. So there could be a tool which is maybe just doing a simple email, which is more personalized, but there could be a tool which is combining all the CMS and sales and marketing and those kind of things together to do marketing automation. So a tool which connects with your CRM, gets data of the CRM, and then communicates with your audience is what marketing automation mostly is.
So a lot of this is also understanding your customer better. I mean, if you simplify it, right? And the customer could be a consumer, could be a business, right? If you're a business-to-business organization, it could be even your constituents or your supply chain, I imagine. Is that an accurate way to describe it?
Yeah, you can say that, yes. However, internally it's not being used as much, but again, marketing automation tools are actually also being used right now, the way I see it, in the use cases, also to enhance the internal processes as well as external as well. Mm-hmm. When I say internal, yes, you are correct when you say supply chain is also getting into that area.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating, and obviously this whole thing of understanding your customers is about serving them better and obviously generating more business and being more successful at that. So talk a little about what is a personalization framework. One of the things we put out there as part of a discussion point today is, what is a personalization framework and what does that really even mean?
So personalization, to start with, in the layman's term, I would say not one size fits all. It's like, like people used to say earlier, the way it will be like one size fits all kind of a thing. So it has kind of changed. It's use of technology. It's like use of technology and customer information to create more, I would say, personalized experience for the customers, right? People who are, interacting with the business, and the business is about to get more and more personalized with them, not just about knowing their, first name or last name, but also what their preferences are, what channels they prefer to communicate, lots of other, minute factors. When you talk about framework, well, framework could be something like, you need to analyze the data, first of all, right? And then you need to kind of brainstorm exactly what really matters for the business then you need to kind of go into defining how to kind of approach the market, and then going ahead and implementing those personalizations. Finally, also reporting and kind of analyzing exactly how this performance is, this personalization is working for the business.
It's interesting. So there's kind of a process flow that you should follow in terms of defining what you're trying to gather, how you're going to use it, how it interfaces into your own internal systems. And so it's not just purely automating posts on LinkedIn or automating, email marketing or SMS or kind of push marketing.
Well, it started there. Of course, all the tools started there itself, but it has now become very mature. If you remember all those tools like Hootsuite and all these tools, they are all scattered. In fact, I also got a call from a lot of clients earlier, who want to automate, like for example, Google Ads and Facebook, but all these are completely scattered. They were not that automated. But when we talk about marketing automation today, the tools are much more advanced, where they are combining everything together and doing much more than just posting automated social media messages, or maybe putting in some rules and automating ads and all that kind of stuff. It's much more advanced.
So is there a strategy by sector? If you were in the aerospace business versus in the online education business versus in chemicals or wholesale retail, how do you begin to dissect that? Obviously, because one of the challenges is, people often say, you hire a consultant to tell you what you already know, but I think many times people don't know what they don't know, and they really are looking for the guidance, whether it's because of their sector or because of the technologies they've just added. How do you go about, as I say, eat the elephant one bite at a time? How do you take that apart for a client?
In terms of, if you say technology-wise, I would say the marketing automation, industry is evolving at that level. They haven't gotten that specific in terms of the sector. In fact, there are certain sectors like real estate and I'd say a sector like coaching or maybe the training business, where the tools have really gotten evolved, which they have become very specific about the sector. But when it comes to the other sectors, well, I would say it is still evolving. Like for example, healthcare, finance sector, companies like Salesforce, they are coming out with solutions which are really kind of I would say they are in a kind of infantile stage.
Okay. And in terms of designing and deciding the let's say the rollout plan. So you've decided that you need to automate a lot of these streams. You've sort of articulated which are the priorities, I assume, for you, whether it's email, whether it's social media, what channels within social media, and how do you begin to prioritize that? I mean, is there a methodology behind that?
First of all, you need data, and that is where everything starts. If you are fortunate enough to be in a business which has a lot of information, already about your customers in terms of the channels they prefer and the way things have been going, what are the cohorts, what are the different preferences of a customer, then you already have a data, and that is the place where you actually start. That's a good starting point. If not, if you don't have the data, then it's about maybe going ahead and understanding exactly how the competitions work and how the other industry key players are kind of getting into personalization and doing the work. So that would be the starting point, where I would say that wait till you have enough information, and then go ahead and shoot with your strategies.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's sometimes people feel frustrated by an overwhelming amount of data, but if you don't have any data and you think, well, I'm never going to get any, and why would I ever use it? It's kind of refreshing, particularly when you begin to understand what your customer is doing. I mean, I always like to say to people using restaurant analogies because they're fairly easy for everyone to understand. In a restaurant, you could stand in the restaurant as a maitre d' or a chef or anyone else or a busboy and look around and see what people are doing, right? You could see whether they have a smile on their face when they take the first bite into your food, right? That you can see if they have a little strange look on their face when they see the bathroom door is opened in your restaurant and it opens to the place where people are eating, right? So whereas online, you don't have that luxury often, right? You're sort of thinking, how do we find what the customers, what's the expression on their face? What is the reaction? You can watch their mouse click, etc. But this data is the lifeblood of marketing for sure, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Since marketing and technology have joined hands together, data has played a very important role. In terms of understanding the not just the behavior factor, but also the combination of behavior and demographic factor, right? And well, there are a lot of information, a lot of controversies already going on regarding the privacy, but it is believed, as Accenture itself says, that around 83% of customers do want to share their data. If you can really get personal information to them instead of just throwing just about anything to them,
Right.
and that's what is very critical.
Yeah, it's strange. A lot of people think that people are not willing to share your data. And I always also use an example of people. I tell people that sometimes they're shocked at this. You look at myactivity.google.com, you can find out 5 years ago where you were, even if you never used Google Maps. So you then think, well, people are going to naturally delete that data. But then people think, well, but I do get good recommendations about restaurants I should go to, and I do get this and I do get that. And so before you know it, people are thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't hide my data. So I guess you have to give them a compelling reason to want to share their data.
I'll tell you one very interesting thing which has happened just 2 months back. You might be aware about Apple rolling out the iOS 14 updates. Now Facebook was really very scared because not just Facebook, all the companies who used to kind of personalize the information on iOS, in fact iPhones, they're very scared. Maybe the iOS rollout is going to make people not use their apps and not give them permissions. But as it turns out, all the people who are doing Facebook ads, they are all happy because it has not affected at all. It has not affected anything at all, and Facebook ads are working fine, and personalizations are working fine. So in fact, what has happened is that even if the iOS have rolled out their update, people have gone ahead and they have manually chosen to share their information with like Facebook and other Instagram and all those kind of apps. Yes, they want to share their data. It's just that they want more personalization to be done.
So let me ask you. So you're let's say a company that's new to engaging, and of course I'm going to assume it's a matter of which consumer, whether, as I said, it's a business to business or a business to consumer. But let's just take two examples: a business to consumer in some retail sector, and a business to business in some, let's say, industrial sector. Your customer's an industrial client. So what would you do, not knowing much more than that? What kind of data would you say we must start with these 3 points of data? What would you pick as, because assuming you're not going to get their email and their phone number, what behavior, I guess, was what I'm kind of getting at. What's the behavior you would want to understand immediately from the consumer?
Well, so of course, I would like to first of all understand, their behavior in terms of how much time they're spending with their business. That would be one of the key elements to understand their interest level. So if I score from 1 to 5, for example, I say, okay, this much time they spend with the business, then they are interested, right? So maybe I can give them a score of something like 3 or 4, maybe even 5. So if you say somebody spends more than 2 minutes, I can give the score of 2. Somebody spends more than 5 minutes or 5 minutes, I'll give the score of 5. That will be one information which I'll have, and that will be called something like a filter information, not a customer lead information. I know, okay, these are the people who really want to spend time with the business and they are interested in the business, B2B or B2C, whatever they are. Second would be, of course, how much, apart from just, spending time, how many pages they are visiting, how much they are scrolling, and all the kind of information I can store and can understand, okay, the interest level on these particular piece of set of, customers or the visitors is more than the others. That is where I would start, and then from there I would like to engage them through, trying to give them some kind of an ebook or maybe some kind of information so that I make them as lead as well.
Yeah. So you really, time, frequency, and then obviously areas. So that also involves making sure your content is tagged in some format, right? So you need to know what your content is tagged about, right? So you might have a page that's an inventory page, or you might have a shirt. It might be a product, it might be a service, but you need to know what that's all about, otherwise you're going to gather information that's not very useful.
Absolutely. So it's about categories, subcategories, and then product specifications, stuff like that. So there could be multiple areas where it can be tagged.
What's your recommendation? What's your thought in terms of whether you roll out more social channels? Because obviously part of the advantage of marketing automation is the idea of automation, right? It's
Yeah.
taking the repetitive tasks out of your pocket. But at the same time, if you have 10 channels, automating 10 at once might well turn into spaghetti and a nightmare. Everything all mixed up. So, do you have a strategy for rolling out automation feature functionality or channel? Is there an order in which you do this generally? Is there some sort of hierarchy that you apply?
Well, it turns out that businesses actually know, and till now what has happened is businesses actually know what kind of channels should be given priority to start with. You cannot go to all channels at once, right? We can start with one channel or two. So, for example, if you say B2C, we would like to start maybe with Facebook and Instagram to start with. Depending also upon the kind of gender or the location, it just so happens that some locations prefer different kind of channels. Maybe a country where maybe preferring Snapchat or something like that. But when it comes to India, maybe I'll have WhatsApp also into the mix of channels where I would like to go ahead. But when it comes to B2B, again LinkedIn becomes number one, right? And then move ahead with other channels. So it'll never be all channel at once, right? That will be like when you're going for a mass campaign, but when it happens to retargeting, then it is like you can go to all channels as well, depending again upon the kind of business model, B2B, B2C, retail, or you have some kind of insurance kind of specific sectors as well. You can find out exactly where this kind of information is found and where these people are really going to. That is how you target all these sectors.
What's can you just describe some of the tools that you use specifically for automation tasks? Which are your favorites? Why? What are the key buckets of functionality that you think are distinguishing or unique to them?
Surely. I had started with HubSpot, and I liked it to some extent, but I moved to Mautic, right? Because it also has a lot of functionalities. But when it comes to advanced functionalities, if you really want a one-to-one personalization, a real-time personalization, then something like Salesforce Interaction Studio is one very important tool, which actually is a very I would say the boss of all personalization tools, right? So yeah, this is what it is. But also again, you have to look at the strategy and the scale of the business, right? The number of things you want to personalize. Do you only want to personalize the email marketing, or do you also want to personalize specific web pages? Or do you want to go to an extent of, also changing the colors of the page and also getting to the different channels and all those things. So all these tools fit different kind of scenarios. So I wouldn't say I would go for a HubSpot like a tool for a very large scale business. I would rather choose, Salesforce Marketing Cloud for that. So these are the way mix of the tools are being used.
So what degree of technical sophistication is required for in Salesforce platforms? Salesforce Platform is, what was it called again?
Interaction Studio.
Interaction Studio.
So basically, it's a marketing cloud, and it's a part of the marketing cloud.
Right.
So you can say Interaction Studio is one such section.
And is it tightly tied to Salesforce CRM, or is it also open so that you can plug in other CRMs to it?
No, it starts with, of course, it is tightly tied with the Salesforce CRM. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're really kind of wedded to, you can't really implement it effectively if you're not on the Salesforce CRM.
Well, no, it is a bit difficult there. So the Salesforce Marketing Cloud tool is a very sophisticated tool. It has different kind of data points where it takes information from different areas, and Interaction Studio gets information again, and then it personalizes based on information which is available in Salesforce Marketing Cloud.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So talk about what a dashboard might look like, because obviously we're not going to have time to jump into the dashboard, but is it just walk us through what does the dashboard look like, and why would we want to consider this, and then maybe are those other features that are available outside of Salesforce?
A dashboard will actually look like, to start with, it will have some figure around revenues, right? In terms of how personalization is affecting the business, what is the lifetime value coming out of personalization, right? Because that is what it's all about at the end of the day, right? Apart from giving a nice experience to the end customer, for business it matters a lot if the revenues are good, right? So that is why it comes out. Then again, dashboard would have interaction in terms of how uh, you know uh, the end user is behaving in terms of on their different kind of tools like web or mobile, right? Or other different kind of tools which is into consideration.
Hmm.
How they are, navigating along different pages and different tools. These are the kind of information, some basic information where which are displayed on the dashboard to start with, and you
And
can get deeper.
good. And I assume that as you evolve this, you change your reporting, you tag different content in your site, or your application. You begin to look at trends and cohorts of people, and to what extent? I mean, we've begun to implement various bots within platforms that are smart bots that begin to capture data, which are kind of forming a part. Drift is one, Azure Communication Service is another, AWS has its own platform, obviously, as well. To what extent have you found those to be useful in both accumulating information as well as communicating channels to customers? So sort of smart and AI-driven algorithms and platforms that help you communicate better.
Yeah, I found it useful only when it comes to predict, right? If they can really predict better outcomes. I mean, if they can suggest, what all should be done apart from what we are humanly kind of thinking and doing. Right, that is one area where I found a bot. Apart from this, so far I haven't used bot as such. I'm working right now on Einstein, which is again a product from Salesforce itself. I'm kind of learning, but yes, I have found out that okay, that can also come out with suggestions and predictions that okay, this is what more we can do for with a particular cohort and to get maximum results out of those interactions.
And the ROI, what do you do in terms of calculating an ROI on this? Because obviously everyone's needing to justify to the CFO or to the budgeting group that, where this is smart, this is going to return us money in X months or weeks or months. Hopefully not years, right? Now that everyone's in a very fast cycle, if you want me to spend $100,000 or $5,000 or $150, I need to demonstrate that it's going to produce some results. So how do you do that? How do you demonstrate that ROI to your clients or to the constituents of the platform?
Well, again, that component is very essential. What we have seen, we have always seen, positive results of personalization, right? Even from emails open. So it starts with email opening, and we have always seen that okay, once these kind of things start happening and once people interact more and more, it obviously becomes it becomes very obvious that the results are going to be more when you interact more personally with these individuals. Now ROI is calculated, of course, basis the more personal interaction that we have with individual customers, right? And so in our retail and e-commerce, we have seen a lot of positive lot of positive information coming out and a lot of sales increasing. Right, so it's all about increasing the sales from the e-commerce point of view. So that is what we report to the our clients, and then of course it takes from there.
It's kind of interesting trying to figure out how to link up. Now you got another system to deal with, right? An ERP system or some version of anything from a WooCommerce at the simplest level to some complicated Oracle ERP platform that's tracking conversions and behaviors. So you're now starting to wire a lot of these pieces in the background together, right? The marketing automation needs to speak to an ERP or some, accounting system, FreshBooks or something. You have to really begin to justify that. And sometimes people need to take a leap of faith, right? That that at the simplest of levels, if you're a small company and you have 3 people or 2 people or 5 people running around trying to market. And if you said, well, we could actually do this with 2 people, not 5 people, if we had marketing automation. Or maybe we could do it with 5 people, but 3 of those people would be moved into the technical side of the organization instead of just purely the marketing, because they would have to make sure these pipes at the back end are talking to each other. But now we're measuring,
Right.
now we're focusing on metrics.
Right. So, I missed out the question in terms of.
Yeah, I'm just sort of curious as to what extent, when you talk about the ROI and the benefit. Obviously, some of it's people. Obviously savings, cost savings, or making more money, or generating more business, or whatever the metric is. But sometimes these automation systems. I mean, automation historically, just in terms of robotics and things like that, was, well, we don't need as many people hand painting cars. Now we have a robot. That's an automation, obviously. But in this case, we're not just making things. You're not just scaling, but maybe you don't need as many people running around and coordinating. But you're getting better data, right, on your sort of an integrated dashboard of your customers, as well as you're now beginning. So you're now getting data that sort of says, I understand my customer better. But you're now also maybe not having as many people in that department. And they're maybe more, maybe they're the same people, maybe they're different people, but maybe they're now focused more on sort of making sure the back end pipes, the data that you have about people, is more useful.
You are correct. Actually, there are two things we are talking about when it comes to automation. One is scaling up. Of course, it helps there. Second is efficiency, right? And efficiency and accuracy, right? These are the things which falls here. So when you talk about people out there, of course, we are going to need less people. Of course, when you say someone does not need to go ahead and post on social media, or maybe even schedule on social media, those things, you don't even need different kind of reporting dashboards. I mean, everything is combined in one area itself. Those people who used to work earlier in these sections, they are now going to be assigned different tasks now, right? And they are going to be working and they have to kind of upskill themselves to kind of understand exactly how things are working. And the way what I have seen is, I have not seen people getting, fired, I would say. What I have basically seen is that, of course, they have been assigned different tasks. They have been, given opportunities to, kind of upgrade yourself. And now this is what the next thing really is. This is what has been most common thing. In fact, I have had some challenges with training the sales team, because when you integrate marketing automation system with a sales automation system, and it happens quite often, I've seen that the sales teams usually are very apprehensive about these kind of changes, and it takes a lot of time to kind of convince them, because they all used to have a bit different kind of targets and all those things, and they say, okay, their targets are getting into different areas. I mean, so that is one challenge which I've seen, and they have upgraded themselves again. It takes a bit of time. There's a learning curve, right? So, but yes, it works for them as well. So it's like nobody's getting fired.
That's quite fascinating, because everyone has always thought of automation as eliminating jobs, and often it makes people, takes people out of. I think I've mentioned this many times on our Meet the Gurus. I once had the pleasure of spending half a day with a fellow named Joseph F. Engelberger, who was the father of robotics, literally in the United States. His name is associated with the first robotic arms that Westinghouse bought from him, the ability to automate spray painting and welding and things like that in very dangerous facilities. And he said to me that that the robotics was designed for what they called the 3Ds, which is if it's dirty, dumb, and dangerous. So if it's something you're going to lose a finger, or you're going to get hurt, or some other thing, or it's in a you breathe terrible fumes or something. And now it's kind of it's this maybe 3Ds that are associated with marketing, which is like repetitive things that every day you click out the same messages, or you're now being required to think like a strategist, right? You're being required to, the person who's in that role, which was, quote, dirty, dumb, and dangerous in robotic world, but now in marketing automation is kind of being pushed back into, I've got to kind of think like a data scientist almost.
Yeah, humanity is evolving. I would say automation is playing very important role. In fact, technology is playing very important role in human evolution right now. And it's the same is happening in marketing as well. People who have been into marketing, even all ages, they are upgrading themselves very rapidly.
Yeah, it's fascinating, because the requirement today is so clearly in reporting and analytics, and the data obviously that feeds those systems. And if you can't explain to, it used to be, well, let's spend X dollars or rupees or pounds or euros, let's spend that and see what happens. And now it's, well, tell me what you think's going to happen. Give me some
Yeah,
plans. Give me some reports. Show me the report you're going to show me once you prove or disprove your theory.
absolutely.
Yeah.
This is how it's working out right now.
That's a fascinating change in the field, and I think that automation of this type is really moving faster. And you have a course coming on our platform very shortly about marketing automation, how to use some of these tools. It's been highly rated elsewhere, and I think we're very excited to have it, and then hopefully start working on doing some of our guided labs and guided guru discussions as well. So I appreciate, Chandan, you taking the time. Pleasure having you, and we'll see you on the platform very soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in the platform. Thank you.